little while back, we made a video talking about Over the Hedge and its transition from comic strips to the big screen. As I pointed out in that video, that wasn't the only DreamWorks film that was based on an existing story. And although some people are aware of this fact, there's still a good chunk of those who aren't. So I figured it would be very interesting to go over another one of these projects with today's video covering the infamous Boss Baby. The Boss Baby, released in 2017, and to say the critical reception was mixed is putting it lightly. In fact, ever since its reveal, the movie had been very divisive online. It's been the butt of many jokes, and to this day, there's some who claim it's one of the worst DreamWorks films ever made. But I think that's a bit of an exaggeration. After all, we just got Megamind and the Doom Syndicate. And before that, we had B-Movie and Shark Tale. I know those films have their fans, but even I think they can agree The Boss Baby is a step up from those movies. Regardless of personal preferences, the film did manage to make $500,000 against a budget of $100,000. And personally, I think that success is warranted. The film stars Tim Templeton, a little kid whose life gets turned upside down when a little brother, quite literally, walks into his life. He discovers that this Boss Baby actually works for a super secret organization. And in order to get this nuisance out of his life, he's going to have to team up with him to take down a rival company, all the while learning to appreciate his newfound brother. It's a sweet story with some top-notch animation and voice acting. And the way the story is presented is pretty creative. The book, on the other hand, is a very different story, and that as well is a very literal statement. There is no Tim Templeton, no Baby Corp, and when you strip away everything, all you're left with is a very basic concept. The book revolves around the Boss Baby himself and all the shenanigans he gets up to, from making meetings to enjoying company benefits, and that's all the book really is. The setup of a baby being a CEO, stretching the same joke for several pages. Despite being a kid's book, it feels like this was made specifically for the parents, because the whole charm of the Boss Baby scenario is lost after like 2 pages. And without a proper story, I don't see the kids getting invested in it. Unlike parents who may get a chuckle at how relatable it is to them. I don't think it's necessarily a bad book. It's just a one-trick pony without much else to offer. And reading it has only really made me appreciate the movie even more. One of the hardest tasks you can be given is adapting a children's book like this, especially if you're forced to turn it into a full-length film. And I'm not talking about adaptations of books like Captain Underpants or Diary of a Wimpy Kid, but rather books that are about the length of your average Dr. Seuss books. And there's just not enough material to cover a feature-length film, so you have no choice but to pad it out, rework scenes, add characters, and so on. Usually the quality of such changes aren't the highest, and that's why you would count all the good Dr. Seuss adaptations on one hand. Boss Baby, however, manages to take the non-existent plot and turn it into a very creative film. The addition of Tim and focusing on the brotherly dynamic was a very smart choice. Not only that, but with Tim comes one of the more admirable aspects of the film, his creativity. The movie is told from the perspective of Tim, who has a very overactive imagination. Because of this, it's heavily implied that everything we see in the film is just through the lens of a child's imagination as he processes his new life event, seeing his new baby brother as some intruder trying to steal his parents away from him, acting like the big boss of some company, getting all of the attention. This was a brilliant way to introduce the concept from the books, and with the actual story attached, it is significantly improved from the source material. But maybe I should go a bit easier on the book, as it was made for kids after all. But then I remember that the movie was made for the same demographic, so I feel like my thoughts on it are justified. One last thing I'd like to talk about is the sequel to The Boss Baby, The Bossier Baby, which, if I'm being honest, is a way better title than what the movie sequel was called. The book released in 2016. Just a year before the movie came out, and 6 years after the original book released. Much like the original book, it doesn't have much ties to the movie. However, its plot feels just like it could have inspired the movie a little bit. Although, how long the movies take to develop, it's more likely to just be a coincidence. The Bossier Baby takes place right after the original. But this time, a new baby shows up completely to turn the Boss Baby's world upside down! And just like the original book, it's mostly the same one-note joke. But this time, there's actually a bit more story to it. The Boss Baby goes through a similar arc to Tim in the movie, having to accept new changes in his life before ultimately learning to love his new sibling. And because of that, I feel like it's a step up from the first book, but not by much. In the end, both books really aren't anything great, especially by children's book standards, but the movie feels like it gets a bit more hate than it deserves. Even more so when you see just how much of an improvement it is compared to the source material. So, while I don't think I could recommend checking out the books, the movie is definitely worth the watch. And, yeah. I think that's all I have to say on this topic. If you'd like to see more videos like this, where I discuss the source material of some animated films, then be sure to let me know in the comments. And also, subscribing would really help support the content we make. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you in the next video.